ฉันท้อดิฉันไม่อยากทำดิฉันทิ้งไว้เฉยๆฉันก็ไม่รู้ว่าดิฉันจะโดนพี่น้องประชาชนที่เลือกดิฉันมากล่าวหาว่าดิฉันไม่รับผิดชอบหรือเปล่าวันนี้กติกาที่เราอยู่ดิฉันไม่ต้องการอยู่เพื่อจะบอกสังคมว่าดิฉันเป็นคนที่จะสร้างความขัดแย้งแต่ดิฉันอยู่เพื่อส่งมอบกติกานี้ส่งมอบประชาธิปไตยนี้ให้กับคนใหม่ค่ะเพียงแค่การประคองค่ะแต่วันนี้เราไม่รู้ว่าประคองแบบนี้เราจะไปอย่างไรนะคะหลายท่านอาจจะบอกว่าการประคองนี้เดินหน้าเลือกตั้งเลยหลายท่านก็จะบอกว่าเลือกตั้งแล้วมีแต่ความขัดแย้งแต่ถ้าเราไม่เลือกตั้งเราจะเลื่อนก็ต้องศึกษาว่าทำยังไงให้เลื่อนอย่างที่ภาคเอกชนพูดเรายินดีให้ความร่วมมือในทุกๆมิติทุกๆเวทีถ้าดิฉันมีอำนาจปฏิบัติได้
Decision of the เพื่อไทย party that need me to run re-election but anyway that I think election will be the final judged by the people of Thailand the majority that people still need เพื่อไทย to continue the work of the government or obey.
But at the military office she now has to use outside the city, Prime Minister Yingluck said there was still no dialogue between the two sides.
I think my door is open for negotiation anytime. So I think we would like to ask for the protester that if a protester can open the way, so I think someone can find a way to talk.
The cheery faces they show on their marches are deceptive. There is intense hostility towards the Prime Minister's family here, stirred up by weeks of fiery speeches. I asked her whether she believed it would help if her family retreated from politics.
No one wants to just...
And saying that she's going to push ahead with an election that the anti-government protesters do not want. I asked her whether it was time for her to stand down from her position for the good of the country, if nothing else. And she replied to me that she is constitutionally bound to stay in her position because she's heading a caretaker government right now. And let's wait and see. Let's allow the election and the voters to decide. She was pushed again later in the press conference on exactly this line as to whether the entire Shinawat family should just distance itself from politics. They are dividing the nation. Previously, her brother Thaksin Shinawat, who was ousted in a coup in 2006 amid corruption charges, and herself as well, now becoming an unpopular prime minister from politics. To which she replied that her family is the victim, and she also replied that they had garnered 15 million votes in the last election. They came into government through an election, and if people want to remove her, it will have to be through an election. Natalie? Another meeting the protesters. We're going to go inside and see if we can speak to him. Mr. Sutak, you've made a lot of threats against the government. You have given them a deadline to step down. You're even saying you're going to take the Prime Minister into custody. Is that actually going to happen?
We haven't made a deadline for her to resign, but I can assure you the people will rise up.
But you're saying that the people don't want them to govern the country. This is an elected Prime Minister with an elected government. She's saying she represents democracy. And are you really representative of the people?
Winning an election doesn't give you the right to commit crimes. An elected government still has to obey the law. When a government abuses its power and doesn't listen to the people, we call that a traitor government.
But who gives you the right to lead a non-elected committee?
Look at that.
170,000 on Monday night.
Them, it's their country, not Yingluck's.
Only 40,000. Are these really the Thai people? Is this the entire population?
You watch, you'll see.
She's called an election. Why don't you let them vote?
We don't want an election full of fraud and vote buying. We don't want an election that isn't free and fair.
Sutak Taksaban says that this is people power. Yingluck Shinawat says that she represents the people. She is trying to protect democracy in Thailand, not her own position. But just how long can these supporters stay on the streets? Simon Wilson, CNN, Bangkok, Thailand.
But at the military office she now has to use outside the city, Prime Minister Yingluck said there was still no dialogue between the two sides.
I think my door is open for negotiation anytime. So I think we would like to ask for the protester that if a protester can open the way, so I think someone can find a way to talk.
The cheery faces they show on their marches are deceptive. There is intense hostility towards the Prime Minister's family here, stirred up by weeks of fiery speeches. I asked her whether she believed it would help if her family retreated from politics.
No one wants to just stand and let people hate you every day. But I told you that this is the job that I have to respond. If I don't respond, I just like ignore because someone complained me and I said, I don't know what's going to happen with the democracy of Thailand. So that's why it's not only the role to hold for my reputation of my family, but we have to keep the democracy.
So Thailand lurches towards a general election disrupted by endless protests, and one now unlikely even to produce a new government. It is a frighteningly uncertain outlook for a while.
กราบเรียนเชิญชวนพี่น้องชาวกรุงเทพว่าต้องออกมาไล่โจรด้วยกันอย่าปล่อยให้บ้านท่านกรุงเทพมหานครเมืองศิวิไลแห่งนี้กลายเป็นซ่องโจรกลายเป็นที่ซ่องสุมของ